We slowly got closer to the mountain, disarming a few mines on the way. But thanks to the hovercart, we got closer than ponies ever dared to go. The base was rumored to be in contact with the enclave, and got ponies back and forth between the skies, and it was just beyond this hill.
What a journey, I tell ya.
Our climb up the mountain began at last. None of us were apparent mountain climbers, but we had to get up this thing for a vantage point, and we had to be careful about it. There could have easily been some outlook posts mounted up here.
Let's see if we can figure out what the hay's going on up there. Nothing's been more on any pony's mind.
And get them to open the skies. These gloomy skies have overstayed their welcome for centuries. The ground on this part of the mountain was gravelly. It wasn't super steep per se, but slipping here would send you tumbling a good minute.
Frick!
Scattershot was climbing up first and leading the way, but her next move up got a pony-sized boulder above us to move. It widely missed us, but made a lot of noise on the way down. Stealth might have been out the window.
Too close.
I was waiting, holding still. I thought I heard faint screeching. Way too familiar screeching. Wait a moment, Airy Pony.
Huh?
Just as I was getting an idea of what might be the reason for the screeching, I saw a flock of around 20 or 30 bloodwing bats flying out of the side of the mountain about 10 meters away from us. Those guys were very known for swarming and devouring unprepared ponies. We were reasonably ready to fight, but this many was quite the issue, especially if you had to be quiet about it. The red-winged creatures didn't waste a second in making a fly directly for us, screeching like a cranky wheel and their fangs bared.
This is gonna get ugly.
I knew guns were usually not so quiet, so I focused myself to cast quite the different spell. An emerald green sphere cast around me and the girls, slowly pulsating, sparking, and slowly expanded as the rabid animals took a lunge at us. Scattershot cocked her shotgun, and Compound had some blue bottle in her muzzle. As they flew into my quite literally shocking protecting spell, they started to twitch and fry in midair before flopping to the ground. I had no clue if that was quiet enough, but it was the best I could come up with at this point. A moment later, we were surrounded by their bodies, but I had an idea, and I made a climb over to the little cave they came out of. It had to be empty, and sometimes those guys are good at gathering stuff.
Damn, if I told anybody this stuff we're doing, I tell ya, not a single soul will believe me. Where you going, big guy?
Scattershot followed me as I was climbing over. I am feeling treasure. I turned around and saw Compound behind me, with like 4 of those bats stuffed into her saddlebag. Yuck! But I had a hunch what this was about.
Potion stuff.
She was grinning at both of us, and our gun-nut mare was a lot more confused than disgusted.
These gonna be your pets, gal? More like helping you invade a place.
Compound grinned and gave her that special kind of smirk. That little cave they came from was filled with bones and a bunch of saddlebags? Talk about surprise treasure. I wasted no time rummaging through some of this stuff.
Getting paid early, huh? Look at this stuff.
Scattershot found some ammo in one of the bags, along with some caps and some papers, and then strapped it on. Come to think of it, she did never have any baggage. Caps! I found a pouch of around 20 caps and a little white sphere. A memory orb. It had to have been. A health potion and chocolate?
I didn't know I was gonna be able to make a whole storage of potion ingredients.
The mint-coated mare who I've come to adore found some little purple cube and white crystals in one of the pouches. We definitely went through every single one of them. These ponies didn't need their earthly belongings anyway.
Only you'd go into a cave of those things and come out with, chocolate?
Scattershot was nomming on her chair.
I guess that's real, sweet of you. See what I did there?
She winked at me, and I blushed, but also understood the worst pun in all of Equestria. Well, you didn't bat an eye. I winked back at her, and I got the stern look from Scattershot.
I should be locking the both of you up.
Scattershot gave both of us some very deep kisses, and then it came to me. This place could serve as quite an entrance. If I could map this for a long-range teleport, it may be very easy to get more ponies to come here when we finally try to take the place. I sit down for about 5 minutes, focusing my mind on the very bones around here. The fallen, those who might have come before us, or who got dragged in here by those bats, we'll never know. My horns sparkled quite brightly as I mapped it out and ultimately memorized it. It's like memorizing vocabulary for a language, but with a lot more nuances. The girls were awfully curious about what this was, but eventually, it was done. The memory orb I found was going to be for later. We'd find out what happens here, how to invade the place in due time, and what they really do here.
Right. Let's get a move on. I get a bad feeling from this whole area.
I understood. I was also quite unsettled, but I had to keep ponies calm and collected. Yeah, I'm also nervous being out here. Who knows how many tried to get here and failed, and what's really going on here. Keeping yourself a secret for many years isn't all that easy.
Yeah, you'd know. You're like 200-some years old and still kicking? Badass, adorable, and does what's right.
My cheeks were red enough to make me look like a crossbreed with a tomato, and I had a mint and a lime green front hoof around my back. I was feeling popular, and it was quite amazing to feel. Eventually, we continued our climb for many moments, and found the top quite close within our grasp. I looked upwards, and saw absolutely nothing up there, though we probably would have known about it if there was turrets up there when we were driving here the hard way. My coat was definitely getting dustier the further we climbed up, but I realized we wanted to be invisible and emit no heat signatures if we made it to the top. But before I could even tell the girls about my plan, Compound huffed us some yellow bottles, and I knew what was in them and downed it immediately.
Alright, Eager Eagle. And yes, these do make you a literal shadow. Bottoms up, every pony.
I passed the third bottle to Scattershot, and she drank it in one sip before we looked at us. We could sort of see another still because, well, shadow. But if you were some sorry guard, you were about to mess up your job. Moments later, we made it to the top, our shadows being our only real giveaway. Even the stuff we had with us, like items, were invisible. We got out the special scopes that we were given the second we saw a building that was the size of a small factory. But there was more. In the distance, I could see multiple turrets on the factory roof, likely used to immediately deal with intruders. They seemed to turn a lot. There were green flashing lights in my vision, looking through the scope. I didn't know what the energy signatures meant, but the ponies back at the camp would love to know about this stuff. I also saw some train tracks running through, past the side of the factory. And near the tracks, I saw some maintenance tunnels, with manhole-like entrances underneath. I had a hunch those would be a good way to go into the compound, without being in the open too much. I also spotted a front door, connected to the road leading into the facility, which was otherwise walled in. My scope also flashed and sparked every now and then. I didn't know what half of any of it meant, but if I had to make an approach, it would be to try to access those maintenance tunnels from somewhere, maybe further down the train tracks, and work your way up and infiltrate it from inside. Just as I was about to put down my scope and back into my bag, I saw something big and heavy approaching from the side of the factory. A vertipony, with machine gun barrels attached to the wings and ponies in armor. Oh boy.
Potion's wearing out soon. We might want to move.
Moments later, we made our retreat downwards to the mountain and back into our little cave. I saw my hose flash in and out of my vision, and eventually we were all back to normal.
Phew. Holy cow, did I see stuff. There was crazy armor on those guys, and now I saw a gun on someone near the entrance that I had never seen before. Those guys gotta be stacked. There also was a radioactive lake in the back, a bunch of those barrels in there. Also saw a body or two. The heck is going on in there?
I found our way in. The maintenance tunnels under the rails, those have to be our best bet. Avoiding all the tricks on the surface. He can probably bypass most guards in an enclosed space in a few mines as well. We continued our descent down the mountain, which was awfully a lot quicker than our climb. But boy did that feel awesome, seeing stuff no one ever did, and we found a foolproof way to continue here. And a new spot to teleport to. We gave ourselves so many openings to this place. Now all we needed was the tech heads back at our base to make sense of it. Luckily, our hover cart hadn't been tampered with, and it was still covered underneath a bunch of tumbleweeds. But just as we got onto our ride, and we started the ignition, we heard a loud engine buzzing from over the mountains. I really hope this wasn't what I think it was.
Freak, we might want to move!
Scattershot pointed at the mountain, as a vertipony started to fly over it, and started to descend in our direction. We'd likely be able to make ourselves invisible, but the flying cart itself, not quite so easy. Needless to say, I pushed my hoof down and put the pedal to the metal. The barrels of miniguns on the side of the wings that were filled with minigun ammo started to rotate and come to life. They'd have a hard time hitting something this mobile, but we wouldn't be able to stick it out for too long, and to boot, we couldn't just return to our settlement with them following us. We had to find some way to bring him down and fast. Any reinforcements of these would likely only end up making matters worse for us. Not even a second after I heard their barrels, I brought up a shield around the girls in our ride. Bullets started to rain down. I was not going to be able to hold this for too long. Then I grabbed something from my back and put it into Scattershot's hoof.
Huh? Oh, so that's the kind of stuff he got in there. A grenade, huh? Hey, is that red counter, though?
It's, a counter so you know when it goes off. Tricksiness with a blasting cap. I smiled, and Scattershot knew what to do. Both Earth Ponies and Alicorns had crazy throwing hooves. That's Earth Pony power for you. And with them focused on the miniguns, they likely wouldn't see it coming. But I had to get them to come a little closer, especially if Scattershot missed. I'd likely have to use some of those tricks that would have gotten ponies arrested back in the day. Pull the pin and tell me when it's at 3, and throw it at 2. I yelled over to Scattershot while I was speeding up a little to try and get the Vertipony to speed up too. I heard her pull the pin. The seconds were ticking away. It became minutes where I had to focus. I love these moments. Living on the edge and making it work for you, that was a big secret on how to survive the wastelands for 2 decades. My shield started to get cracks. It wasn't going to last too much longer. Compound was already covering her ears in anticipation of what was about to happen here. I heard their engine getting louder as I sped up. This was crazy enough, it just might work. As the aircraft caught up to us again, I was waiting for Scattershot's signal. My horn was blowing to provide a follow-up if needed.
3!
I slammed the brakes down as hard as my hose let me, making the thrusters on the hovercart stop us almost immediately. Then I turned around and saw Scattershot as she threw the grenade. The shield was blinking, but keeping steady. It needed to for a stunt like this. I watched the dark green little ball, which was the size of a dumpling, fly towards the plane, which was still at full speed. I thought I could make out the counter going to 1, but wasn't sure. Just as the grenade passed the cockpit on the right side and was about to collide with the wing, it detonated on the spot. My shield was up, not harmed from this due to the explosion not being too close, but the metal menace above couldn't say the same thing. The wing was shredded off in a fiery detonation, which seemed to also have put a dent into the main body. Those planes were pretty well armored, but with the wing down and a turbine out, this thing wasn't going to fly much longer.
Holy goddesses, wow!
Compound was just gazing into the skies. There was flames coming out of the plane where the wing used to be, and it winced as it was tipping over to its right side and dove straight into the ground. No pilot was going to land this so close to the ground. A truly window-shattering explosion illuminated the wastelands as it crashed. Survivors weren't so likely from such a crash. I would have loved to check out the wreck, but I was almost certain reinforcements were coming, and with us being decently far from the mountains and our vehicle intact, I wasted no time to start driving again, and this time making sure we got out far and fast.
Damn badass stuff! Freaking tin cans with attitude, you buck off!
Scattershot high-hoofed me, and Compound was truly in awe.
Well, he's hoping they're smart enough to leave us be.
I grinned at the girls, smiling from cheek to cheek that they were safe and that I didn't have to use certain kind of spells. If that isn't worth cider, nothing is. I was giggling, and they both nodded in unison. What a day. But we had to make sure there was no search party following us, looking for a random hovercart. Luckily, our settlement was an ex-underground prison, so we'd certainly have a way to solve that one. I looked across my shoulder and found Compound snuggling against my side as we drove. But sharing a seat with 3 ponies did make things get awfully cuddly, but being close as we were, we certainly loved it. Ooh! The red earth pony raised a hoof as we finally made it back to our settlement after almost an hour of speeding around in our cart. Those things were quick.
Not every day you hear what we saw you do. Bats, the factory, and taking out a vertipony like that. We were all glued to our seats inside. Our tech head inside also went nuts, said he never saw anything like it. And impulses and frequencies, I don't know much about this stuff. Might wanna humor them though.
Yeah, but hey, that's wastelanding. Here's hoping we can learn about this stuff, so we can actually get in the place and find out how to open those clouds.
And we definitely would put a huge dent into the enclave if they lost all the info from there. And maybe they'd finally see reason somehow and help us ground folk, rather than hiding from us. I added to Compound's idea. The settlement was starting to look quite like a small town with a few shacks outside. It was astounding what ponies did here in the span of a few days. I told the pony who we left in charge of the place about what happened, and how they might be looking for a hovercart. So he helped us park it in the entry area of the bunker. A familiar purple unicorn approached us, who was in charge of the water supply here, and who gave us those periscopes, and he ran at us like a kid who was about to beg us for candy.
You won't believe what I saw. Well, through what you saw, technology we could only dream of, and a lot of it looked like it was weak spots. The frequency for starters are based off crystal transmitters, which means an interception could only accomplish via synthetic emitters, and...
He started to use words I barely knew the meaning of, a lot of technical shenanigans that sounded curious, and that I just never looked into much. Boy, did he sound enthusiastic. I didn't want to interrupt the guy, and want to be polite. It was all very interesting.
That's crazy, but how do we get in?
Scattershot cut to the chase.
Well, I'm gonna make something for you you can use to get in, but I'm gonna have to look at all the data you got in detail. I might have to take along, who knows? The tech we got could be worth caps for days. I'm gonna hit you up with what I find tomorrow.
He grabbed our periscopes and retreated into what used to be an old prison cell and got to work, I assumed. I was more curious about the garden here that I helped these ponies make, back before we left. It was an underground one with some special soil and improvised lighting.
Damn, what a day, but if I ever learned something, it's that nothing could touch us. Touch.
I heard Compound say, as she laid a hoof onto Scattershot's side with a wide smirk on her face.
Touché, gal.
Our gun-nut mare was rolling her eyes in a giggle, until I also laid a hoof onto her side while it was trotting. Touch. I couldn't withhold my laughter.
Oh yeah? Touch.
Scattershot kissed my nose, and I blushed brightly, and my ears went down immediately. Gosh, was that adorable and amazing. After a few more cuddly moments, we got to the garden, and what these ponies did was mind-boggling. There were trees down here. Apple trees. The good kind of apples. Not sweet apple acres quality, but better than what most wastelanders call an apple. As we got closer, a white colt raised his head with a watering can at his muzzle.
Oh, New Leaf, Compound, and Scattershots? I heard you did stuff. Well, look. I thought you were gonna be thirsty, so...
He walked to the back of the garden, and I only saw it now. A tiny barrel with a valve on it, and he exactly thought what I might thought he would do. Out of it came golden streams of sparkly and fresh apple cider, and he filled 4 cups worth of it and gave it to us.
First batch of apples, fermented with a family recipe, and special treatment to the wood.
That pony didn't waste any time pouring us some mugs of cold cider. It tasted about as good as words might describe it. Cold, appley, sour, with a tad of sweetness and refreshing as a beverage can get. And boy did it end up being such a rough day. And yet it ended on a high note, and one could only guess where it would go from here, while we definitely had more than a cup or two of cider.